Okay, good evening, everybody. It's 6:15, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Have a lot to cover today, and appreciate everybody making it to, or those of you who are able to make it to the live session tonight, and certainly hope that everybody, regardless of whether you make it to the live session or if you watch the recording later, that you find this helpful tonight. First, so a couple of things, kind of a couple of logistics to cover first. First of all, as I've been sending assignments back to some of you, I've had folks saying, hey, I can't actually see the notes and the feedback that you're including. Specifically, if you have a Word document, and if I send you comments and notes back within the Word document itself, I'm having some people say, hey, I can't see it. And it's happened to more than one person, so don't feel like I'm calling any one person out. If that happens to you, when you're in Word, go to your review button, and then when you are in that review tab, make sure that it says that you can see notes. So there's a button that says like show notes. If you click that, or if that's on and you still can't see my notes, it's quite possible that I mistakenly sent the non-revised version back to you. So just let me know. But do that first, because that way, hopefully, I'm usually sending the right document back to you. But certainly, if you have any other problems, with that, or just any questions in general about the assignments or anything, feel free to let me know. And then second of all, speaking of the assignments, first of all, I really, really appreciate everybody's discussion this week, specifically around games, and I know a few people uploaded logos and truck wraps and all of that. Really appreciate everybody chiming in. I mean, I think that, or I hope that you're starting to also see the power of, the power of the group and people adding suggestions and, oh, well, this makes me think of this. And it's just because other folks are further removed from your name and from your product idea than you are, it's just really valuable feedback for you. So I appreciate everybody participating in those discussions. And I will honestly say, I encourage you to keep those discussions going. Just because that assignment is done for this week doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to go back and take a look. Actually, Natasha had asked for a PDF to be uploaded, and she wasn't able to do it because of restrictions on the system. So I uploaded the PDF for her yesterday that has the wrap for her food truck, or the potential wrap for her food truck. And she's looking for comments and feedback on that. So I encourage you to keep going back, keep that discussion going, and again, kind of keep working as much of a collaborative team as we can as we work through this. And then, so I've got two other kind of logistics. The third one is, this was a brilliant idea that actually Natasha and I, when we had our one-on-one office hours, that she shared with me. So there is a book, hold on, I've got it pulled up. I got to check the name of it. Okay, so the book is called The Science of Good Cooking, and it's the Cooks Illustrated. It's by Cooks Illustrated. They basically, it's 50 lessons of kind of the core culinary lessons of, how do you make the best fries, and then they go into the full science of how you've got to soak the potatoes and drain the potatoes, but then also why that's important. So the entire goal of this book, they have recipes, but the entire goal is to also provide you with the science so that then you can apply that science to other aspects of your cooking. Now, I'll be honest, I actually haven't seen the book yet, but it sounded like such a cool idea. What Natasha is going to do is basically do a lesson a week and then cook at least one of those recipes from that lesson every week. And I told my husband that, and I come from a culinary background, and I was like, that just sounds really cool. Just a really interesting way to really get to understand the science of the culinary world a little bit better. And I know as I've talked to many of you one-on-one, some of you who don't have culinary backgrounds have mentioned that your lack of a culinary background is, concerning you a little bit, or worrying that it may hold you back. This may be something you want to check out, and maybe you also want to jump in and do a lesson a week. And if you guys want to throw something on the discussion board and start talking about the lessons you're learning, I highly support that. Let me know how I can help. But wanted to throw that out as, a possible resource for you guys to be looking at. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then lastly, so there was one question that was posed last week in the seminar that I wasn't sure of the answer, and it was from Lisa. It was with regards to what permits as a cheesemaker she would need to sell across the border from Oregon, where her operations are going to be based, into the state of Washington. And I said I didn't have an answer then, and that I would get back to her. And I've gotten back to her personally, but in case any of you happen to be wondering about the answer, I wanted to make sure that I shared it with all of you too. So I talked to a few folks at a cheese distributor who works with creameries here in Washington State and other states. What we were informed is that a cheesemaker in another state who wants to sell into Washington state needs to have a grade A dairy or creamery permit in order to legally produce product, for example, in Oregon and sell it into Washington. So I didn't want you folks to feel like, either that question had totally evaporated or that I had just gotten back to Lisa and not to everybody else. So again, if there are any questions as we move forward that publicly I just don't know the answer to, I will certainly get back to everybody so you have that information. So what we're talking about today is brand positioning. And what I mean is what role does your brand fill in the marketplace? Now, typically, something like this would be covered when we talked about marketing, and there's another couple weeks of marketing that's right after the summer. But I want to talk about it now, actually, because how you determine how to position your brand in the marketplace, how you determine, what products you're going to be what you're going to offer. I feel like all of that is so early on in the planning process that it doesn't really make sense for you to work through all of these logistics and then in the next 4 weeks work through all these financials only to get to the fall and find out that, oh, wait, actually what I was thinking of doing doesn't really make that much sense and have to do a whole bunch of rework. Like I said, what we're talking about today is brand position. And despite what people like to believe, there is no such thing as one brand or one product that absolutely appeals to everybody. So as soon as I find my pointer, there we go. I'll move to slide 2. Before you can figure out where your product fits in the marketplace, you actually have to understand the marketplace. And that means, above all, understanding who your customers are. And, a lot of the reading this week and some videos this week are around understanding who that target consumer is. There simply is no such thing as a product that appeals to everybody. Knowing who your target customer is and understanding what they need is central to not only marketing decisions, but also to any other business decision that you're going to be making, either now or later in your business. So for example, how are you going to price your products? Well, that's partly going to depend on your product costs, but it's also going to depend on what your target consumers can handle. Where are you going to market your products? What channels are you marketing your products through? Are you online? Are you traditional advertising? Are you going to be doing TV advertising? Again, it's going to depend. What are your target consumers reading? Where are they spending their time online? Are they even online? There are, believe it or not, consumers who actually do not spend a whole lot of time online and maybe get the majority of their information from radio. So, I'll give you another example. What products that you're actually going to end up offering? So kind of your menu of products, if you will. Well, all of that needs to be based off of an understanding of who the target consumer is, what they want, and what they need. So you can see in this graph, or what I'm trying to show is that understanding who your target consumer is literally impacts every piece of your business. It impacts your customer service and how you're going to be responding. Again, as an example, if your customers are very social media savvy, you need to be prepared for social media queries to be coming in on social media channels. And if they come in on social media channels, I will tell you that consumers are expecting perhaps not an immediate response, but a very quick response. There is no such thing as weekends on social media. So if you decide that you are going to be trying to talk to your consumers one-on-one on social media because that's where they are, then you also need to be prepared to answer questions, even if they come in on Friday night at 9 o'clock. Like I said, it doesn't mean you've got to turn it around right away, but it does mean that you don't wait until Monday morning to reception, that you get back to social media. With this knowledge of who your target consumer is, position your business in the market. That's what we're going to do tonight. Like I said, we've got about and other competitors are, and videos and readings about who your target consumer is and how to figure out who they are. Get through those things, and you still have questions, let me know. Again, happy to either talk about that in more detail next week, or to spend some time one-on-one with folks as needed. So this class, sorry, my slide didn't, there we go. In the beginning of this class, about how not every consumer. And some folks would argue that there are these huge brands, and that of course they appeal to every consumer. So think of like brands that are making billions of dollars. Your McDonald's, your Walmart, as an example. So yeah, people who have an affinity for those brands, But by the same token, there are also millions of people who have an extreme dislike for those. There are people who will never support, regardless of what it is that they need, and that they will drive out of their way to not shop at a Walmart. So even those brands, even those big brands, with all their marketing power and all their marketing, don't everyone. Should you? Like your Procter & Gamble, your Kraft, a lot of umbrella brands. Procter & Gamble is a great example. Well, they own Tide, but they also Tide detergent. They also own other detergents. Well, the reason they own multiple detergents is because they know that not every consumer, not the target market who everybody in the US is going to buy Tide. So instead, they need to have multiple products who are going to appeal to multiple target consumers, even though that means that Gamble is having to make, market, distribute multiple products. There we go. So the process of positioning your company in the marketplace is actually at the core of not only marketing, but like I've been saying, about good business strategy, because it enables you to zero in on the problem or the need that the marketplace and your target consumer is having, and then help you determine how you are going to fill that need. This is something that many entrepreneurs kind of have a vague notion about, but the process of going through a positioning exercise, which we'll walk through tonight, and I'll show you examples tonight, it's going to force you to really solidify your thinking, and that ultimately is is going to impact your business strategy. Including understanding who your consumers are, who your marketing. Your competitors are, understanding what your marketing message should be, how you are going to, try to bring customers into your fold. So what's more is that good positioning is going to help you clearly convey to consumers, or if you're selling wholesale, clearly convey to buyers, distributors, brokers, and then ultimately, you first have to convince them, and then you've got to convince the customers. Your job's a little twofold when you're selling wholesale. And don't worry, we'll talk about wholesale in a whole lot more detail when we sales and distribution. But you're going to be able to convey to these consumers, or convey to these buyers or the distributors, what makes you different from other similar products in your competitive set. And that's going to help convince the buyer on why they should be bringing your product in and ultimately kicking another product off the shelf, because that is what has to happen. That is helping tell consumers why they need to buy your product over the product that they have been buying. As a reminder, we talked about this the first week, consumers only have a certain percentage of their after-tax income that they can spend items, and just because you come out with this awesome new product doesn't mean that the amount of money that they're willing to spend on food every single week is going to increase. For you to go into somebody else's shopping cart, it means that somebody else has to come out. Having a great product isn't enough. You have to be able to convey to the consumers why your product is good, what makes it so good, and why they need to buy it. So how do you figure out what the role of your brand is in the marketplace, so that you can start working to make it a successful brand, serving that target market, that target market that we've been talking about in the other readings and videos this week? So there's a formula that we're going to walk through that is taught in pretty much every marketing program at universities and corporations. I mean, trust me, Procter & Gamble is using this, Nestle is using this this process. Pretty much every marketing program around the world. I'll show it to you. So, as you can see here, essentially, let's see. I thought it was lots of skips. Seems to be better when you speak slower. I'm so sorry. Okay, that's interesting. I will speak slower, and let me know if it keeps hanging. Let me see. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, let me know if it keeps happening, and I will also try to speak slower. I wonder if the video, I feel it's like I've got a lot I want to cover tonight, and I apologize because I do speak fast when I get excited. So I'm going to try and slow down my speech. Thanks for letting me know. So this positioning statement, it is essentially one sentence. So don't worry that all of a sudden you're going to have to come up with something that's 100 pages long. What we're looking to develop is one sentence. And the sentence is set up very specifically. So you see at the top of this screen here, the way it is set up, it says to target market. And give me a second to just read the sentence through and kind of explain how it works. So to target market, company name is the brand of frame of reference, that primary benefit. So what happens here? You are going to say, so to, and then based off of who you know your team is going to be. So you can see in our example, to parents who value organic and handmade is what this fictional company is who I talk about. I use them as an example time to time on the website. That is who they have determined their target audience is. Still skipping? Let me look. My internet connection. Yeah, my internet connection. Can we do one or two other things here? Let me see if I can fix this. Give me 1 second. Yeah, let me know if you run into issues again. I apologize. Okay, so this positioning statement that we're talking about, the way that it is put together, so you're going to say to target market. So based on the example, to parents who value organic and handmade ingredients. So you put in there what you know about your target market. Your name is pretty easy. That's the name of the company. So whatever you've determined for your company. Is the brand of frame of reference is the what. The brand of what is it that you're making. You know, you are a food truck. You are making cheese. What is it that you are making? You are making ice cream. That primary benefit, and it has to be the primary benefit for the target consumer. Keep that in mind. Always be looking through this through the lens of the target consumer. So what's the primary benefit for the target consumer? And then the key attributes are the reasons that the target market is going to believe that your product is going to deliver that primary benefit. So the example I have here, to parents who value organic and handmade ingredients, Aunt Bee's Jams is the brand of jam and spread that lets them feel good. Oh, sorry, that should say good. Lets them feel good about feeding their children because Aunt Bee's handcrafts small batches using locally sourced ingredients from small family-owned farms. So the parents with organic and handmade ingredients, that's our target market. Company name is Aunt Bee's Jams. So the frame of reference, the what, that is the Aunt Bee's is a brand of jam and spread. That is the what. The primary benefit, it lets the target consumer feel good about feeding their children. So in this case, we're saying the product is going to elicit an emotion from the target market. And the reason the target market believes that is because Aunt Bee's handcrafts small batches using locally sourced ingredients from small family-owned farms. Because in this case, the target consumer, that's very important to the target target consumer. Does that make sense? Yes. And like I said, the key is always understanding that you need to be looking at this. You need to look at the primary benefit, and you need to look at the key through the point of the chart. It's not about what you want, which is why doing, for example, this week's assignment about trying to understand who your target consumer is so important. You really have to understand what it is they need, what it is they want. Sorry, go forward one more. I have another example. I just wanted to show an example. So in this, same thing, it's one sentence. To University of Washington students, that's our target. Vegan Veggies, that's the name of the company. Is the brand of what? Well, in this case, it's a brand of food cart. And the key attribute, or the key benefit to the target consumer is that it offers these students a healthy and quick lunch. The reason that these students believe it is they have a great on-campus location, so they're able to and grab their vegan lunch. Again, fictional company, but just want to show you another example that truly any company, and this is not only done for food companies, this is done for car companies as well, car manufacturers. Every company does this, and you would be surprised at actually how hard it is to narrow all of this down into one sentence. It will of really thinking through and working before you feel, very. And I have, so in this case, so as you can see from the vegan veggies example, the benefit to the students is the tan. And we're going to come to it in a minute with another. Show you. In this case, we were talking about, or sorry, in this case, I'm thinking about, well, what would the positioning statement for this product be? A healthy granola bar. Who's the target consumer for this product? So again, if I'm the one who is creating this, I first do my research on trying to understand as much as I can about who the target consumer is. And hopefully I have a group like you where I can share business names with, and then I can find a business name that I'm comfortable with. And then once I know everything that I can about who that target consumer is, I'm going to be looking and saying, okay, what is it that they need? What is it that they want? How is my product going to be able to fit their lifestyle in a way that benefits them? So again, you can do it for the food carts, you can do it for, like I said, car manufacturers, you can do it for granola bars, you can do it for any single product, but it will take a surprising amount of time. And one more example for you. So in this case, and then we'll stop and see if there are any questions, to women who are concerned about their figure. So again, kind of a very specific target consumer, and you could actually narrow this down even further. You could say to women who are concerned about their figure in the greater Portland metro area. And so to these women who are concerned about their figure but want to enjoy cocktails. Skinny girl. I don't know, I've actually never had a Skinny girl drink, but I've heard of it in the marketplace. This is not their actual positioning statement. This was an exercise I did for myself to see if, what do I think their position statement would be. So in this case, Skinny Girl, well, what they are is they are the brand of alcoholic mixers that women can drink guilt-free because of the brand's reduced calories and sugar. And if you look at any of their advertising, you look at their marketing, you look at their packaging, it is very, very much focused on women. I am sure that there are other, I'm sure that there are men who also drink Skinny Girl drinks, but truly they are skewing their marketing. They're making all of their business decisions around this understanding of who their target consumer is. If you have these additional people who end up buying your product, that's wonderful. But don't, especially as a small company starting out, don't focus your energies, whether it's marketing energies or business strategy energies, on trying to market to those other people. You want to be making your decisions around your understanding of who your core consumers are. So researchers have done actually a fair amount of research on why consumers buy products, and what it comes down to is that there is one of three reasons, and we talked about this the other week. There's one of three reasons why consumers buy products. So you need to be thinking about, as you think about your position, as you product and what it's going to be offering to the consumer, to your target consumer, does it to the target consumer? Does it set a basic need of theirs? Does it solve a problem for them? Does it make them feel good about themselves? Or sometimes be multiple of these things. It might satisfy them in some way or another. It make them feel a certain emotion. Emotions. So psychologists, again, I mean, they love to study people. And so actually there has been a lot of research. What are those emotions consumers feel when they make a purchase? How do they want to feel? Now, they've come up with this list, I think it's of 15. Keep in mind that, cinnamon can also be used. So you might look at this and say, well, I actually, I don't feel wise, but I feel smart. Same thing. So those synonyms also work. So target consumer is, think through and say, how do I, based off of what I know of them, how do I want them to feel when they purchase my product? What is going to be important to them? How, as you think about, and you can also do this exercise as you think about the brands that you buy now and the products you buy now. Why do you buy them? Oftentimes, if you ask a consumer one thing, they're going to tell you a very logical, going to tell you the reason behind it because it's tapped into the behind it. We may not even realize that you buy Tide because that's what your mom used growing up, and that smell reminds you of your childhood. It's stuff like that that these psychologists are looking at. But you see, like somehow to authentically of my customers. It goes back to understand where they are and what their needs are. This was a great quote that I just wanted to give you, and this was from BMW. I thought this was brilliant. That is important as what BMW understands that for their target consumers, they want to feel a way. And so every decision that BMW makes about their business, from the marketing to also, well, what new cars should we be coming out with next year, how they make their customers feel is as important, if not even more important, than the actual product that they're making. And that's important to you as you will be producing products to remember and to always be keeping in mind. So I actually, again, kind of went through and came up with some feelings that consumers might have when they purchase different products. So for example, when eating Aunt Bee's jams, this was from our positioning statement, I feel like a good parent. I was looking at, well, let's look at not only food, but let's look at service companies too. So when working with XYZ Consulting, I feel like I'm making smart business decisions. When you're enjoying Charlie's chocolate, I feel indulgent. So again, go through this for some of the brands that you know. And as you start to work through who your competitive set is, I would encourage you to think about this as well and say, how do my competitors make my consumers feel? And where then can you kind of slot your business in? If you're noticing that all your competitors, you believe, are making your consumers feel one specific emotion, you are probably going to want to try and tap into that in some way or another, while also communicating to those consumers why your product is different and or better. So, as I mentioned before, this process, this framework seems deceptively easy because all you have to think, because most people say, all I have to do is write one sentence. But as I've mentioned, it's surprisingly hard, and it will probably take you several attempts and several rewrites before you end up with something that you feel comfortable with. Once you have that positioning statement that you feel comfortable with, that can now act as the foundation for all strategic decisions that you make in your business. And this is important both from a business standpoint, but it's also important for this class, because as we continue to move forward over the next multiple weeks, we're going to be making lots of business decisions for your business, where you need to make sure those business decisions are grounded in something. And so this positioning statement and walking through this exercise will provide that foundation for you. I always recommend that once you have this positioning statement, print it out, put it by your computer or in your kitchen space or wherever it is that you are doing your work. And then anytime you're faced with a big decision, you can see if it's in line with your positioning statement. Is the decision that I'm going to make, does this make sense based off of my positioning statement? Will this new marketing message work? Does it hit the benefits that I've identified as being important to my target consumers? Should you sell your products into a new store? Well, does your target market shop there? Things like that. All of those decisions you can bookmark back against this positioning statement. So one last thing, like most things in business, your positioning statement is not a static, I would say, document, but it's not a static sentence. The marketplace is constantly changing, and so therefore, so should your positioning statement. I'm not saying you should do it every week or redo it every week, but at least once a year, you should go back and revisit your positioning statement. And make sure that your target market is still who you think that they are, that their needs and their wants are still what you think it is, that the benefits that you're providing, that your consumers are recognizing those benefits. So you should always go back, like I said, once a year and reevaluate, is my positioning statement on track with what I know about the marketplace based off of how it's changed. So in terms of your assignments and work this week, what we're looking at, you actually, the bulk of the effort, I'm hoping and expecting, is going to be spent on researching your target consumer, because that is something that is going to take time, and I'm very cognizant of that. Whether you go to the library and do research about them, the Plate of the Union report that you've downloaded has information about your target consumer. There is more information on my website. If you type in target consumer or target market, there's more information over specific target markets in the food industry. I also recommend, go to farmers markets. If here in Washington, they're just getting started. If there are farmers markets in your area, go to farmers markets, watch those consumers, watch what they're buying, how they're buying it. Go to stores, watch, or when you're in the supermarket this week, watch how consumers are making their buying decisions. And then certainly, if you feel comfortable, you can always create kind of an online survey that maybe you send out to your Facebook friends and ask them to share with their friends, or somehow distribute outward to folks to try and gain a little bit more information. And in online surveys, the nice thing is you can ask a little bit more personal questions than you would just see if you were standing in a store watching somebody. There is certainly a lot of market research available out there that's paid. There are some wonderful market research companies. I don't necessarily recommend that at this juncture, because for a lot of those, you're looking at $2,000 to $5,000 for those reports from some of these companies. But that's what I recommend. Go to your library. You might be surprised at how much access to those reports you have through your local library for free. I know up here the Seattle libraries have a number of those reports, and just going in and talk to the research librarian, and you'll be surprised what they can pull up for you, and is all free. So my first stop is, say, go to the library if you want to try and get your hands on some of those reports. So in addition to understanding, doing research on your target consumer, you're also being asked to create a customer sketch, and there's information on that on the site, though you're always welcome to ask me questions. And then you're also being asked to submit a competitive analysis. So based off of who your target consumer is and based off of the, your business concept thus far, do the research to figure out, well, who are my competitors in the space? I realized last week, by the way, that I forgot to show you my cheesy slide. I promised that the first week that I would always have a cheesy slide for you guys, and I forgot to share it. Since last week was full, we were talking about the logistics and red tape and permitting and all of that. I know that those red tape pieces can be really draining to work through. That's not the fun creative stuff that a lot of us love as entrepreneurs, especially as food entrepreneurs. So that was the premise for this slide last week, which is just to say, that entrepreneurship isn't easy. I don't think any of you ever necessarily expected it to be easy, but remember, you're not just building a business, but you're taking this dream out of your head and you're executing on that and creating something tangible, and that takes work. And some of it, unfortunately, might seem a little like drudgery, but it can definitely be worth it in the end. But I did want to share another cheesy quote for this week. Have to end on a cheesy note here. Since the focus for this week is really about understanding your target market, your competitors, your position in the marketplace, this week's slide is all about understanding that having a great product is not enough. The premise for this graphic is that I like to joke with food entrepreneurs that this idea of build it and they will come, and some of you may remember that movie Field of Dreams from early 90s, I think. Well, it was this whole concept of that you build this great field and then the consumers would come. Well, simply building a great product is not enough. There is no such thing as build it and they will come. That only happens in Hollywood movies. You have to be very smart and very strategic about how you are going to position yourself in the marketplace. You have to understand your strengths and weaknesses, both as a business owner and as a business. You have to understand who your consumers are and what it is they need and what it is they want from you, and how you can serve their needs better than your competitors. It's those decisions that make successful businesses. So that is all that I have for you guys today. Are there any questions at all? So quiet. Okay, well, as always, feel free to reach out to me via email, or if you want to set up, oh good, I'm glad to hear that. And I'm actually going to, I'll check my computer out with IT too to make sure that it wasn't something on my end. It says my internet connection was good, but I will double check that before next week for all of you. So if there were pieces of this that you missed because it was skipping or not working on your end, let me know. I will figure out a time. We will make it work with your schedule to make sure that you get this information. So just let me know what I can do for you to help you with not only this week's learnings and assignments, but also just in general move your business forward. So I really appreciate all of you. Okay, is there a certain publisher of research reports we can look at? Yeah, I prefer Mintel Research. So it's MINTEL. The specialty food industry and Mintel usually publish information about the marketplace once a year. Let me see. We might not have access to the complete report, but let me see if I can find a link, and I will share it with everybody on the. I'll put it into. I'll put it into the additional readings if I find it. So later tonight or tomorrow, I'll look for that and I'll put it into the additional readings, and I'll send out a note to all of you so that you know the additional readings have been updated, and that will have the link to the report from this year. I'm almost positive I can find it. So let me do that. One more question: how in depth should competitive analysis be? depends on how many competitors you have. I know that sounds terrible, but if you are just looking to compete in your local marketplace, you're going to have a smaller competitive set. If you're looking to compete, across state lines, it's going to, or nationally, it's going to be a larger document. And you don't necessarily have to, write a tome. It can kind of be, I actually like to have it out in a graph that says, here's the competitor, here's what they're doing, here's why they're doing it, here's their price points, and kind of bullet point. And certainly you can get a lot of information about your competitors by looking at their websites and their social media too. I believe, I will double check, but I believe that an example of that graph is in the readings this week. If it isn't, I will add that for you so you can see kind of how I like to outline it. You don't have to follow that, but specifically to answer your question, how long is it going to be? It's going to depend on what the goals of your business are. And remember, you want to look at it for the coming year. So even if you want to be selling nationally in 5 years, don't necessarily look at all of that as your competitive set. Say, okay, well, within the next year, who is my competitive set? Are there any other questions? Well, I give folks just another minute to write stuff just in case. So I will, after we get off of this, I will go and I will double check that the competitive graph example is up there. If it is, I will load that up so that you can see that. And I will also look for information about the 2015 target consumer or the specialty food consumer. It's information that's from Mintel, which again, that's MINTEL. But I will see if I can find that, and I will add a link to the additional readings and send out a note so that all of you know that that is up when I find it. Okay. Let's see. Does customer demographic and age group always have to feature in a target consumer analysis? I think it's helpful. Off the top of my head, everyone that I've ever seen for big companies and small companies does. Unless your product is so, unless you already know, let's say that you are serving a subsegment of the population, let's say you're going to be taking your product to, a very specific, like we are going to be going to, I know you're doing a food truck, so that's why I'm kind of thinking here. So I'm going to be, or a catering, I'm going to be taking my food truck to this one neighborhood. Maybe then you can be universally popular within that neighborhood because you've already fine-tuned who the target consumer is from a geographic standpoint. But you definitely want to be careful about not leaving the target consumer so wide open that simply anybody could fall into it, because then any business decisions you make are going to be very vague and they're not going to actually land on anybody. They're not going to stick with anybody. Any marketing you do is not actually going to stick with anybody. So far better to have a very narrow understanding and a narrow target consumer base. Remember, it doesn't mean that those are the only folks who are ever going to buy from you. It also, down the road in year 2, you may find that you have 2 very distinct target consumers. And therefore, you might create 2 different customer personas because they are different, but they both like to buy from you. And certainly, like the Nestle's of this world, they have, for example, products that I've worked on, they have 5 target consumer customer personas. So you can absolutely do that, but I certainly encourage you to stay away from being incredibly vague. So narrow it down somehow, whether it's age group, whether it's geographic, whether it's likes or dislikes, but narrow that group down. Don't try to be everything to everybody, because unfortunately it simply won't work, especially with a small business budget. Okay, so it's pretty quiet. Again, feel free to send me any emails. I will follow up on those other 2 pieces. I'll work on that now and try and get some of that information out to you as soon as possible. And as always, if there's anything you need from me, just let me know. Again, really appreciate all of your support, all of your hard work, and like I said at the beginning of class, really appreciate the awesome discussion that was going on this week. I loved reading it, and I learned as much from each of you as I hope each of you learned from your colleagues. The stuff some of you guys saw, the stuff some of you guys recommended to one another was absolutely brilliant, and I really appreciate it because I learned from that too. So thank you. Have a great rest of your night. Bye.